ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم ما آتاكم الرسول فخذوه وما نهاكم عنه فانتهوا صدق الله العظيم وبلغنا رسوله النبي الكريم ونحن على ذلك من الشاهدين والشاكرين والحمد لله رب العالمين. My dear respected brothers, since the past 3 weeks we've been talking about the very important issue and going into details about it, the issue of halal and haram, and what are we allowed in terms of sharia by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam to consume and what we are supposed to stay away from. Why are we spending so much time on this? Because number one, this is an issue of halal and haram. This is an issue of our Jannah and our Jahannam. Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as we have said numerous times, has said that even if a particle of a body is nourished upon haram, something impermissible by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it will not be accepted into Jannah. They just have no hope of entering into Jannah. So we should think when we are giving our children to eat something that is ambiguous or haram, what are we doing for them? What are we deciding with our own hands for them? We've talked about the conditions of halal, the acts of Sahaba, the example of Sahaba, how they were very particular about halal. And last week we talked about 3 or 4 confusions that are widespread in this regard. Today, inshallah, we intend to conclude this discussion by talking about 2 or 3 more confusions that are widespread. They are going around, and there doesn't pass a week where I am asked questions about this. So once and for all, inshallah, we'll address them and try to arm the listeners, the people who are listening, who are here or who are listening it remotely, to be armed with the proper knowledge in this regard. Our job from here only is to arm people with knowledge. Now if they choose to use that knowledge to act upon it or not act upon it, that is something that we cannot control. But anyway, one confusion that has recently arisen is that people have started confusing halal with another term which is called tayyib. So last week we talked about halal, and if halal and zabiha are 2 different things, or if one is related to the other, and we had said that zabiha is what makes animals halal. There is nothing that may be called halal that is not zabiha, and we had provided proofs from the Quran and Sunnah and logic from it. Today, inshallah, we want to talk about this other confusion that is going around, and that is that what is halal and what is tayyib. Both of the terms have been used in the Quran. Halal, as you may know, has been used in many as 10 ayat of the Quran, that the Prophet ﷺ has been sent upon you, and he makes halal things for you and he makes haram things for you, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala permits you or makes halal for you to consume such and such things, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made haram upon you such and such things. One ayah of the Quran talks about the properties of the Prophet ﷺ, that he is a prophet who makes tayyib things halal for you. Makes tayyib things halal for you. Another ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has addressed the prophets, Kulu min tayyibati ma razaqnakum. Eat from whatever tayyibat we have given you or we have provided for you. So tayyib in the language of Quran, there is multiple meanings to it, but tayyib would be closely translated with something clean and pure. Something clean and pure. Unfortunately, as is the case with many other masail, people have confused this tayyib with halal. And there's 2 different kinds of people who like to talk about this. One is who want to declare every meat non-tayyib, and that is why non-halal. And the other aspect of people is which say that everything that is tayyib is halal. So my focus today would be the people who the thinking of making everything that is tayyib halal. The issue is that we do not pay full attention and do an all-encompassing study of the Quran when we dive into rulings. First of all, it is prohibited by the Quran itself to dive into rulings of the Quran without having an all-encompassing, a broad knowledge of the science of Quran and Hadith. When we don't have it, and every single one of us dares to become a mufti and a mufassir and a faqih and a scholar of deen on our own, these things start to become a problem. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the ayah that is quoted, Hazrat Mufassirin since 1400 years and the Sahaba Ridwanullahi alayhim ajma'in, who understood the Quran directly from the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, have understood this ayah as things become tayyib when the Prophet declares them halal. Because if you look at the roots of the word halal, it is from hal. And hal is opening of a knot. Opening of a knot. So when that knot is opened up upon something, then it can become tayyib. Then it can become pure or clean. So nothing can be tayyib that is not halal. The first thing that has to happen is that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in this hadith, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in his Quran has to declare something halal, and then we look at it if it is tayyib or it is not tayyib. It's not the other way around that anything and everything that is tayyib should also be halal. The knot has to be opened up by Allah or the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and then we'll see if it is tayyib or not. And then we leave the remainder of this discussion that what should be tayyib, and that those standards the standards for tayyib can differ from person to person. Because tayyib in the language of Quran has two conditions. The first condition we already talked about, that the knot has to be opened up by either Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And of course the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he opens up the knot on something, he does it in accordance with the order of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In huwa illa wahyu yuha. Everything the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam says is wahi. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala directly in his word of the Quran opens up the knot of halal and haram and declares something halal. Then we have to see if it is tayyib or not. So the first condition, if the first condition is fulfilled, that is, it is halal, then the thing that differs from person to person is that tayyib also considers things that you might like to eat, that you might want to eat, things that are marghoob to you, that you do not have a natural or a, depending on the person himself or the consumer himself or herself, they do not want to turn away from it. They do not despise it. And that can differ from anyone, from person to person. So tayyib, number one, has to be halal. Number two, whatever is preferable for you to eat. The first standard is universal. Once the thing or the meat or the flesh or anything that we are eating has been declared halal by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then we go on to the step of seeing if it is tayyib or not. The other question that is asked a lot is that there is a weak narration. Now it is very surprising that there is this big faction of the ummah that want to, na'uzu billah, send all Zarif hadiths into, na'uzu billah, set them aside, irrespective of what they are talking about. And there's another, and the surprising thing is that a lot of people from that faction of the ummah want to use this Zarif hadith to make haram things permissible. So if you see the hypocrisy and the irony of this matter, that they want to use this Zarif hadith and try to apply it on a matter of halal and haram. Know this well, that Zarif ahadith are also the sayings of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We have a weekend course where we go into details about these issues. This is not the place to go into details about it. But a hadith becomes Zarif when there's, in the long chain of narration, if there's certain things, but the most prevalent one is that if one of the person narrating that hadith, his full life history, his full honesty, his full sense and soundness of memory is not known or is debatable. Even if that tiny thing goes wrong, a hadith in the science of hadith is declared Zarif. does not mean, none of the muhaddiseen say, the pious predecessors say, the Salaf Salihin, that is Za'if hadith is not the words of the Prophet ﷺ. They are still considered the words of the Prophet ﷺ. The difference is that according to the universal agreement of muhaddiseen, a Za'if hadith, a weak narration, cannot be used in the matters of halal and haram. They cannot be used to declare something farz. They cannot be used to declare something impermissible. These are the things that a Za'if hadith cannot be used for. They can be used in terms of virtues. And it is perfectly fine according to all muhaddiseen to use a Za'if hadith, a weak narration, in terms of virtues or telling us the benefits of deeds. Whatever benefit, reciting Subhanallah carries that many virtues. If a weak hadith comes to this effect, it is perfectly fine to use it. But the irony of the matter is that people want to use this Za'if hadith and try to declare things that have been expressly by the example of Sahaba, by the words of the Prophet ﷺ, declared haram. Or in fact by the words of the Quran, as we said in the past 3 lectures. What is that weak narration? And then since it's a weak narration, and for the most part the people trying to use it are trying to find unnecessary ease for themselves, there's multiple accounts of that narration going around. One very prevalent one is that meat came from an ambiguous source, and this is the only example that goes up to the level of the Prophet ﷺ. There's others narrated about the Sahaba, but there's clarification to all of them. That meat came from outskirts, from a far outlying town, a group of people, and one account is that those people were non-Muslims, which is expressly wrong. Those people were Muslims. If you go into the books of Hadith, those people were Muslims, but they had recently accepted Islam. And they were on the outskirts of the town, and they sent some sent some meat, some dish to the Prophet ﷺ and the Sahaba were confused, are we supposed to eat it or not? And the Prophet ﷺ said, take the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and eat it. We have to understand what time are we talking about. Number one, even in that weak narration, it is clearly stated that those people were Muslims. Those were not non-Muslims. They had the confusion among the Sahaba was for the reason that these people have just accepted Islam, so we don't know for sure have they truly started following the practice of Zabiha or not. But we should remember that staying in the company of the Prophet ﷺ or only seeing the Prophet ﷺ in the state of Iman makes one a Sahabi, makes one a noble companion of the Prophet ﷺ. We cannot compare ourselves with them. We cannot say that we have that kind of taqwa. For the shortest time, I'll just quickly narrate a story. There was one Sahabi, he was a non-Muslim. He was having fun, he was having time in a haram way with a woman. He went out to get some food. And he met the Prophet ﷺ in marketplace. The Prophet ﷺ gave him da'wah, and he accepted Islam there and then. And his mind and his heart changed so suddenly and so completely that he forgot about what he was doing. And even when he was called again towards that thing, he passed, it comes in narration that he passed as if he did not know that thing existed. He passed with his head lowered, his gaze lowered, and just said, I have become a Muslim. So this was the station of the people who only spent a few moments with the Prophet ﷺ. These people had already accepted Islam. They were much higher than any of us, even the best among us, in terms of taqwa, in terms of care for deen. We cannot compare the Muslims of today with those Sahaba. They had a totally out of this world kind of standards when it came to deen. So when somebody gives us food, when somebody provides us something, it is perfectly 100% not only permissible but recommended to find out where and how that meat has been processed. Has it been processed in a halal manner or not? This cannot be applied there. The example of Sahaba cannot be applied. The Prophet ﷺ saying in a Za'if hadith, like I told you, First of all, it's a very different situation, it's a very different people. Second of all, Zaif hadith cannot be used in matters of halal and haram. And the example of Sahaba, the example of the Prophet ﷺ, many other narrations go expressly against this. The one very famous one that we narrated last week or the previous one, Sayyidina Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anh, his slave who was constantly in his company, whenever, whatever sort of food he would bring to him, he would ask him first and then consume that. And then we went over the story of how he consumed milk. So it is 100%. And the people who are asked, if you are, for example, you are holding, if you're calling people at dinner or lunch or serving food in the masjid, if you are asked about it, you should be happy about it. That this masjid or these people that I'm calling to my home, they are concerned about not only their own deen and their matter of halal and haram, but mine as well. And this is something that the Sahaba did. This is something that the Prophet ﷺ taught them to do. So if somebody is doing it, don't make it a matter of your ego. Don't get your ego involved in this, and be very happy and upfront about how this meat was achieved. How did you get this meat? Where did you get this meat? And if their standards of halal differ from yours, there is nothing to keep something in your heart about them. There's nothing to be, keep grudges against them or to think ill of them or to think that they consider themselves a better Muslim than us. No, they just have different standards of halal and haram. They just have a different level of taqwa. You may choose to follow it, you may not choose to follow it, that is your personal opinion, but to get your ego involved in something is not allowed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. To think ill of your Muslim brother is 100% not permissible by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us understanding of deen, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us